And in order for us to unpack greed and opulence, we have to unpack the meaning of secular and the meaning of divine. It's very important that we spend some time talking about those topics. And there is an article that I added to this as a PDF called "To Speak in a Secular Fashion About God." Joel Osteen is very much a secular router. It is very profound that even religion now has begun to speak within like a secular ethos. That should concern us. Also have a reading on greed and new age spirituality. So one of I just mentioned Joel Osteen, right? The idea of the gospel of prosperity. God loves you because you're rich. This is being taught in different parts of Protestant communities across the country. And this also lends itself to like Islamophobia and other senses of supremacy. Well, right? So the guy says, I have more kids than you are. I have more wealth than you. So that how somehow then correlated to being closer to God. That's a problem for us religious. Then after that, we'll continue to talk about greed and opulence as a major hurdle. And we're going to spend some time with Fakhruddin al-Razi. Imam Fakhruddin al-Razi wrote a book called Asas al-Taqdis, which is the foundations of what makes something divine. How do you recognize something should be sacred? The principles of sacredness. As Muslims, we believe in the sacred. وَمَن يُعَظِّمْ شَعَائِرَ اللَّهِ فَإِنَّهَا مِن تَقْوَى الْقُلُوبِ. The Quran says, whoever honors the sacred, this is a sign of taqwa. And then we'll move on and continue to talk about greed and opulence and look at what is the remedy for that is zuhud, which is defined as indifference to the dunya, the temporary world. But we want to balance that between rejection and opulence, right? Just two extremes that we find people on. We're going to talk about then critical theory. Some of you may have been exposed to critical theory. One of the challenges of critical theory from a religious perspective is that it posits that all power is bad. And sometimes we find this in the religious communities. I've seen this, I've seen during the Arab Spring. I was in Egypt when it started. I remember there was a sheikh that was saying our job is just to pray, right? We don't need to remove bark. Just go and pray. So Salat now had become used as a way to kind of buttress himself from assuming the potential power. So we're going to talk about power. And we're going to be visiting, of course, with Shabazz. There's a speech that I've linked here called Malcolm X Speaks, and he has this quote about power that we'll be reflecting on. Then after that, we're going to talk about the third obstacle is going to be people. So, the fourth, excuse me. So knowledge, repentance, opulence, and then the fourth is people and popularity. So it's almost like he's alive now. Imam Khazali's on the ground. He knows what's up, right? And he talks about al-khalq wa shuhra, right? The danger that this can become an obstacle to you. If you allow someone to become or to vicariously live through you, or if I or you try to export our value through what others have in ways that are unhealthy. We're going to spend some time on that as we finish the semester. And we have a few readings. One is there's this theory now called online social capital. Instagram actually called me. They were like, we'll pay you $250 if you do a live. I was like, I'll do it for $5. I'm just joking. I took that $250. I ain't gonna lie, man. But I was like, you're gonna pay me? So I have a friend, and he's like, yeah, they're scared. People are gonna go to TikTok or go here or whatever. So they're trying to keep people, from running away. Right? But then how does that become unhealthy? So we're gonna spend some time on people and value. And then continuing on the hurdle of people, we're going to talk about the danger of the need for spectacle. And there's a good reading also. It's called The Network Spectacle. talks about kind of how people are now constantly living, and every day is a new thing. Every day is a new spectacle. Every day is some kind of new craziness that's happening. And there's social engineering happening here that we should be aware of, so we can be free thinkers. We can be independent in our value system in the sense of centered religiously. And then finally, the last week, which would be the 30th, after the Big Bird Day, is Satan. So the fifth obstacle is going to be Satan and the soul. We'll spend a little time on it. Why is there Satan? Why did God make Satan? It's like a good question people ask. Why is there evil? It's a good question people ask. What are the plots of Satan? And how does it work? And then we'll spend some time talking about the soul and its remedies and the importance of self-discipline. And then on the 7th of December, we will have a review of what we covered. And there is one reading. Again, you have to do all the readings, but I'm kind of a nerd, man. So on the 30th, there's also a really good reading on alienation and how like the two driving forces of contemporary online social media is wealth and individualism, which leads people to being alienated, which is not a fun place to be in. Are there any questions about this before we, I think we can maybe, I don't know what time is set up. Maybe read a little, then pray, then come back and read some more, and we'll finish. Any questions? And then the next semester we'll finish the other obstacles that he talks about, like why do bad things happen, trauma, pain, suffering. C.S. Lewis has a great essay, the problem of suffering. Can't really answer challenge of suffering. Dr. Sherman Jackson has a really good book on Islam and the problem of Black suffering. Talks about theodicy. Any questions before we start? What are you going to get from this? That's, I think, another question. You're going to get ways to think about your own worship and some tools that would help you and help me through life. Undoubtedly, he frames this as a journey. He frames this like you're on this path. The goal is to reach worship. And these are some of the obstacles that will come and present themselves. And he goes into a lot of detail. And not everything he's going to say is like, of course, text is not above criticism. We should all say that now. What I say is not above criticism. But generally, the good that he shares, the ideas, the wisdom, and some of the nomenclature, the religious definitions and terms are very helpful. Inshallah. So what time is Maghrib? Sorry. It's time. So why don't we break for Maghrib? We'll pray, and then we'll come back and read the beginnings, and then we'll finish, inshallah. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah. So also, I think it's a few things that need to be said before we get started. First of all, I'm not here as an authoritarian figure or I don't know the words, but I really want you to feel comfortable here. So I have a rule, if you can ask a question at any time. I don't care. It doesn't bother me. That means you're engaged, you're involved, you're thinking. And I'm not the kind of person, if you don't agree with me, I have 3 kids, you know what I'm saying? Things to worry about. So I would never want you to feel like somehow you asking or differing is somehow going to personally bother me. That's not how we create a learning environment. That's how we create an intimidating environment. It's very difficult to learn in places like that. I've been in situations where, basically was taught that way. So I really want you to feel like this is an opportunity, man, and to take the bull by the horns, as they say. The 2 other things I'll say is that maybe some people hear that man, I don't know, it's text and I'm just, this is for everybody. And my job is to make sure that it's accessible. So if ever you feel a little overwhelmed or you need like more explanation, just ask me. You know, like, and in fact, I want you to remember this. Like, if you don't ask me, I'm gonna be mad at you. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you're like, oh man, I'm not gonna ask, man, I'm gonna ask a question. I was like scared. Then I'll be upset because that means I'm not creating a comfortable place for you. So I'll be mad at myself more or less. The third point is that what we're reading is not Quran. So you don't have to take like everything he says, like, oh, it's like, right? He's a man, he was a scholar, he was a person, he was right, he was wrong. That's life. So we don't want to become like anachronistic, right? We don't like romanticize history. But there's a lot to take from it. But the ultimate challenge of what we journey together through is going to be, how do we then like reapply it, recontextualize it, and think about it in a different way. So are there any questions you have for me before we get started? Just make sure you feel comfortable. And also, if you miss a few, like, oh, I can't go back, man, he's going to be mad at me. I can be mad at you. I was a college student. I had the similar experiences. Yes, sir. Imam Khazadi, he died in the 6th century after Hijri, like 505. Yeah. It's a good question. Yeah. Yes, ma'am, sorry. Yeah, we're gonna go through them, but the last 2 obstacles are gonna be, I believe, talks about the dunya. He talks. Well, I didn't finish it on the syllabus, right? So the text doesn't finish. But after talking about people, he talks about trauma and pain and suffering, and then he talks about thankfulness. And I think the last one is consistency, but I'm not sure. We'll go through it next week for sure. And I may be completely wrong. Just going off the dome at the moment. That's a good question. And we're actually making a film out of this, but it's like it's not like following the book, but it's just taking the 7 obstacles within this context, like our context. And hopefully it will be done, one day, as they say. So we'll begin, inshallah. And it's important to realize that this text is the last text that he wrote in his life. Ghazali dies he's around 55 years old. So he's not very old. And his student actually wrote it as he read it to him. So it begins with the words of his student, which I think is very profound because, success doesn't happen in a vacuum. Like, people preserve things for great people that have an impact on others. They find support. So he says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, قال الشيخ الفقيه الصالح الزاهد عبد الملك ابن عبد الله غفر الله له. So this is the person, his name is Abdul Malik ibn Abdillah. He's the student of Imam Khazadi. He says, Amla alayya shaykh. He says that, I dictated from my teacher, from my shaykh, Imam Khazadi. Al-Ajal al-Imam al-Zahid, Sa'id al-Muwaffaq, Hujjat al-Islam, Zayn al-Abidin, Sharaf al-Ummah, Muhammad al-Ghazali al-Tusi. So he says, basically, I dictated from my teacher. Then he mentions a number of important kind of terms to describe his teacher. And he praises him and he recognizes him as being, someone of incredible scholarship. Imam al-Ghazali is recognized as one of what's called the Mujaddids. The Mujaddids are the revivers of the religion. There is an authentic hadith of the Prophet, peace be upon him, who says that God will send at the beginning of every century one yujaddid laha dinaha, who will revive the religion for the Muslim community. It doesn't have to be a man, by the way. It doesn't have to be one person. According to most scholars of prophetic traditions, it could even be a group of people. It could be a generation. but they will revive. And the word is actually very nice because everyone, of course, is going to use this hadith to justify their work, right? So, but the important part in Arabic is li hadihi ummah, and this lam is called lamu fa'ida, which means for the benefit of the community. So somebody who's going to fall under kind of that designation, someone that's bringing benefit to people. So if you want to kind of assess the claims of any group or any person, it's like, how much benefit are they bringing to people? Is it destruction or is it growth? Is it reform or is it, harming people? Imam As-Suyuti is a great, great scholar. He died like in 9/11 after Hijri, I believe. He actually wrote a poem about all these reformers up into his life. So like 900 years, after the Prophet. He says, well, the fifth person that he mentions as being like a reformer, a reviver. I like the word revive better. Reform sometimes takes on some packed meanings that we may not want. A reviver was Imam al-Ghazali. Imam al-Ghazali is from Tus, which was Naysapur, which is now in Iran. His grave is in Iran. And he has a very interesting life, right? He's someone who lives in a village called Ghazal, which is why he has this name, and be like Long Island or something, be Long Islandy. And he excels in religious education. His father dies at a very young age. He's taken care by his uncle, extended family, and then he moves on and he becomes one of the major disciples of Imam al-Haramain. Imam al-Haramain is someone that you may not have heard of, but you're being impacted by, put it that way, if you're Muslim. Imam al-Haramain dies like 476 after Hijri. And then Imam Khazadi continues to excel in his studies, and then he becomes basically like the president of like Harvard. It's a place called the Nizami system. He becomes the head of the system. So he's a boss. He's academically very successful. And he has the kind of the prized position, And suddenly he has this epiphany, and there's different narrations of how this happens, but the strongest is that his brother engaged in intervention. And his intervention was because he was worried about his brother's akhirah. Like, what a person, man. How many people care about your akhirah? How many people care about my akhirah? How many of us, we don't even care about our own akhirah? So his brother saw him sitting, and he said to him, "Tusmi' wa la tasma'." Like, you want everyone to listen to you, but you don't listen to nobody. Tahdi wa la tahtadi. And you want to guide people, but you yourself, you're misguided. And then he has this kind of awakening. And he realizes like the academy, and that's why his book Al-Munqidh min al-Dalal, which we taught at Tandem last year, is incredible, where he talks about how I experienced like being a academic that is regulated only to theory is delusion. So he has actually a chapter on there where he attacks kind of like, the armchair academic, if you will, the armchair revolutionary, the armchair Muslim, the armchair activist who uses what they've learned as an excuse to like not be involved. And so he has this epiphany. He leaves his post unannounced, which would be hard to do. And he moves to like the Levant area, like Syria, Palestine, for like 10 years. And that's where he writes most of his books about Sufism. Up until this point, Imam Khazadi is a legal theorist. His most important texts that we study are in law. But in this period, he writes a lot about the heart, the dangers of getting caught up in kind of the gloss of the academic life that's divorced from like really being with the people. Then later on, he comes back and he begins to write on other subjects, specifically theology. And then he dies at the age of 55. Rahimahullah. He says that the text begins, Alhamdulillah. Why do you think he starts it with Alhamdulillah? Was that the first thing he said, Wafa? Why would he start this big book with Alhamdulillah? Yeah, right? Start on the right foot. And the Quran teaches us that, right? Begins, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. People, when they enter Jannah, they will say, Alhamdulillah, ladhi hadana li hada wa ma kunna linahtadi. So basically, their life is full of praise. When they enter Jannah, they're going to say, praise be to Allah in the 7th chapter of the Quran who guided us to this. If it wasn't for him, we'd never make it here. So he begins with Alhamdulillah because he recognizes, as the Quran says, that there's really no success except with Allah. So he says, thank you. He says, Alhamdulillahi al-Malik al-Hakim. Malik is the one that owns all things. Al-Hakim is the one that is not only all-wise, the word Hakim is from Hakam. Hakam means to stop something. That's why it's called hikmah, wisdom, because it stops us from acting a fool. And Oklahoma said, you're acting a fool. Right? So hikmah tamna'u sahibaha an al-jahl, keeps a person from acting bad. So Al-Hakim is not the legislator. You lose something in English, right? It's the one who, whatever he has legislated, keeps me from acting a fool. Basically. Keeps me in line with fitrah, right? With being a good person. Al-Jawad al-Kareem, the super generous, the benevolent. Al-Aziz al-Rahim, the mighty, the merciful. Alladhi khalaqa al-insana fi ahsani taqweem, who created people in the best form. وَفَطَرَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضَ بِقُدْرَتِهِ, and who originated. Fatir is the one that causes something to come from nothing. So Fatir goes beyond the laws of thermodynamics. The one who creates matter from nothing. That's Fatir. So the one who originates the heavens and the earth by his authority. وَدَبَّرَ الْأُمُورَ فِي الدَّارِينِ, and the one who will control all affairs in this life and the next, بِحِكْمَتِهِ, with his wisdom. وَمَا خَلَقَ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. He did not create, here he mentions the verse in the end of the chapter called Dhariyat. He did not create human beings and jinn except to worship him. This is the end of the 51st chapter. The word jinn means something unseen. That's why, you can ask your parents, if they're from Pakistan, what was their favorite group in the 90s? Who knows the name of the group? Junaid Jamshid.
Vital signs.
Before, after Vital Signs, or before. Junoon, right? Vital Signs was good too, though, for real. I'm an Alamgir person myself. I'm old school. But Junoon, right? Why is it called jinn? Because you can't see them. That's why it's called Jannah. Jannah is from the same word, because you don't see Jannah. Someone that has lost their mental faculty. Majnoon, because it's like their mind is mastur. So this is the reason I'm telling you this, is because the word ins, people tend to make this mistake, and they think that human beings, the word insan, is from the word which means what? To forget. This is a mistake in Arabic. The word actually is ansi, and ansi means something that you see. So we're the anonym, if you will, of jinn. Jinn you don't see, people see. That's why also we're called bashar. Bashar means something that it shows itself. You see it. So our designation, this is important theologically, is that we are not part of the unseen. That's why the strong opinion is we cannot see jinn. I know if you're on TikTok, that sounds crazy. Because my daughter tells me, if you have a daughter on TikTok, God help you all. That's 20. Because any crazy thing that someone puts about religion, Dad, start charging them. I should go $10.99. But the strong opinion is we cannot. Imam Shafi said, whoever says they can see jinn, فَقَدْ أَبْطَلْنَا شَهَادَتُهُ. This is not true. We'll talk about it in the future, but as of now, we'll do a special series around Halloween. I answer all the questions about spooky stuff, inshallah. Spooky. But the word insan is not from nisyan, to forget. It's from a word which means to be clear, to be seen, that we can see within this world. And he says, وَمَا خَلَقَ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِعِبَادَتِهِ. God did not create us and jinn except for worship. فَالطَّرِيقُ إِلَيْهِ. So the path to Allah, وَاضِحُ لِلْقَاصِدِينَ, is clear for those who look for it, for those who have that determination. وَالدَّلِيلُ عَلَيْهِ لَائِحٌ لِلنَّاظِرِينَ. And its evidences are right in front of somebody who looks. And we're going to talk about that hopefully tonight if we have time, because I know we started late, so my apologies. وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ يَضِلُّ مَن يَشَاءُ وَيَهْدِي مَن يَشَاءُ. But Allah guides who He wants and misguides who He wants. We believe that evil, good, guidance, misguidance are all created by Allah, as we'll talk about later, because that's going to deal with the issues of like why do bad things happen. وَهُوَ أَعْلَمُ بِالْمُهْتَدِينَ. And Allah knows best those who are seeking guidance. It's very interesting that the Quran, oftentimes when it talks about identity, it uses an indefinite term. وَنَفْسٍ وَمَا سَوَّاهَا. It doesn't say وَنَفْسِ. It doesn't identify. That means that each and every one of us are responsible for becoming who we are, determining our path, if you will. Of course, there's social parameters. Allah is merciful. We can't separate ourselves from that. But we ultimately have the ability to be deliberate and determined. Islam is not a theology for people who surrender to the material world. Islam is a theology and a faith for people who surrender to Allah and keep this world in check. But it's interesting that the form for guidance in the Quran, and I hope I can explain this in English well, is a form that implies personal utility. If ta'ala, if, like if ta'ala. The form ihtadi means I seek guidance. Not I'm waiting to be guided. So it's interesting that the Quran invokes, when it comes to ideas, that even taqwa. So we'll talk about later on, even guidance, right? There's this idea like, I'm putting in some work. Not like, oh my gosh, man, when is God gonna guide me? That's the blunt. Like, that's not how life works, man. No, I have to like make effort. The Prophet said that Allah said, if you walk to me, I run to you. If you take steps to me, I take 10 steps to you, right? This idea, this is ingrained within Islam of making moves, trying. So, وَهُوَ أَعْلَمُ بِالْمُهْتَدِينَ. The Sheikh says, is this okay? Is it too hard for people? I mean, just to summarize it, I feel bad. Sometimes my wife is like, you make it hard for people and they never come back. It's all your fault. Man, all right. Sorry.
She's wrong.
Okay. No. Hey. All right, no.
That's why I said it. You don't have to
I don't know that brother. Baby, I don't know that brother, baby. My wife's born Northeast DC, man. Do not say you're wrong. No, I'm just joking. She's amazing, mashallah. That's my home. But وَهُوَ أَعْلَمُ بِالْمُهْتَدِينَ. And she sent her salams. You know, she can't come here because of COVID. She had COVID and they got her last year. She's like, why didn't you get it? Allah's merciful. What am I supposed to say, man? I ate my Cheerios. My whole week Cheerios. ولكن الله يضل من يشاء ويهدي من يشاء وهو أعلم بالمهتدين. Then he says, والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين. Peace and blessings upon the best of the prophets. When we say the prophet is the best prophet, that doesn't mean we say like other prophets are not good. It just means in the sense of responsibility. So we talk about responsibility, we have different hierarchy for prophets. But لا نفرق بين أحد من الرسل, like we read at the end of Surah Al-Baqarah, but we still believe in all of them. Right?
سيد المرسلين وعلى آله الأبرار الطيبين الطاهرين وسلم معظم إلى يوم الدين, and upon his community and the righteous people until the end of time. Now he begins the book.
So here we go. Let's put on our seatbelt and remember this moment. Like, remember when you started this. No? And it's recorded, so if you can't come, it's okay. You can watch later. And usually what I do anyways is I review every time, the beginning, so people, like, if they had to miss, because we have issues, man. And I don't, I understand. I've been in this boat, so, and I'm still in this boat, and things happen. But now he starts. He says, "I'lamu."
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Yes, going back earlier, I hope this is not getting stuck on one place, but when you were talking about the meaning of insan, that is commonly thought that it comes from the Nasiyan, where like it's about forgetting, or you say it actually seeing. So I was thinking that if it is possible that it's one of those words in the Quran that is have dual meanings or multiple meanings depending on the context. Or is that possible for this word?
Yeah, that's a good question. It could be, but as I know, it's not a kalima mushtaraka, right? Laha ma'ani. It has a relationship to the word, but it's how can I say this? Its epistemological history is not coming from. This is something that people say all the time. That's one of the things that we'll confront here. We're going to hear things sometimes. Thank you for asking a question, by the way. First question, mashallah. I think. Oh, no, you got first question, bro. No, Wafa got first question, bro.
What?
No, you just answered the question. But Wafa's like, I'm never sitting there again. But Wafa will be like on the part next time. Watching on FaceTime. No, but seriously, you're going to confront things sometimes here that are popular. Popular knowledge sometimes is a problem. Because sometimes popular knowledge, we don't question it. So it just spreads and then it becomes accepted and then it's not criticized. And that's how a lot of imams lose their jobs. Because they come like, no, that's not right. That's wrong. That's incorrect. Right? That's not appropriate. People are like, what? But this is what I knew my whole life. That doesn't matter. Right? And of course you have to be respectful of people. You don't want to like completely pull the rug from under them. But being a public educator is hard work. Hard work. Yes, sir.
You talking about the hierarchy of responsibility. Just my assumption is that the three Abrahamic prophets had the highest ones.
Yeah, absolutely right. So it's going to be like Muhammad, Musa. We call Ulul Azm, 5 of them, right? We mentioned the Quran. Ibrahim, Noah, Sayyidina Isa.
And you said so that Musa before Isa.
No, I'm just giving them to you. I'm not giving them to you in the
Okay.
proper order. So that's going to be an issue of contention.
So he says, thank you guys for asking. يعلموا إخواني وأخواتي أسعدكم الله وإياي بمرضاتي. Says you must know. When scholars use the word يعلموا, it means like pay attention. It's like when our parents look at us like that, like we did something really wrong. And it has that feeling, but it's more so like of an exploratory expression. Like, yo, check this out. Something you gotta pay attention to. So he says, you must know, brothers and sisters, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala please you and grant you his pleasure. أن العبادة ثمرة العلم. And this is really like the most important thing he says in the whole book. He says that the fruit of knowledge is worship. You have to be very careful in an age where value is driven by exhibition. You know what I mean? Like value is driven by what we share with people. Whereas Islam is like, no doubt, there's a value to that. Of course, there's a value to recognition. Nobody would ever dismiss that. But it has to be located properly. Exhibition can't be what drives me. There's a great podcast. I lived 9/11 in the masjid. Like I had people driving in front of the masjid where I lived in Oklahoma, like honking a horn, like cussing us. You know what I mean? The cops came. So I was in my late 20s. So I remember 9/11. What FBI came to my house. I remember 9/11 very well. And I was listening to this podcast. I don't know if anyone remembers, guys were probably really young then, like Loose Change, although like the 9/11, like what really happened. Those movies that were actually uploaded on something called Google Video, which is before YouTube. But they were like these really like cheesy films, like what really went down, right? And they would say some of the most like preposterous things, right, that were out there. But, what I remember from that moment, right, was that's like exhibition starts in America. It's the first thing really to go viral. It like got 3 million hits on Google Video. Like nobody even watched Google Video till YouTube came out. So they were interviewing the guy on this podcast who made Loose Change 1, Loose Change 2. So they asked him like, how do you measure the success of like these documentaries? He is like, the viewership. He didn't care about the facts. That wasn't what was used to like assess his success. He could care less about that. It was just like, I put out this crazy stuff. Some of it might have been right. Some of it might have been wrong, but it got attention. That's what I wanted. This book is going to force us to kind of look at those things a little differently. Like, no doubt, there's a time for attention. The Prophet ﷺ climbs the Mount of Safa and calls people. There's a place to get people's attention. There's a place where information needs to be shared. But I shouldn't be dominated by this constant pressure to need to perform in front of people. That can render my values and my ethics sort of as compromised. So Imam al-Ghazali says, "اعلم أن ثمرات العلم عبادة." You must know that the fruit of knowledge is worship. وفائدة العمر, and that worship, devotion, is the fruit of your life, like your lifetime. وحاصل العبيد, and it's kind of like the outcome of what those people who are devoted to Allah work for and toil for. It's what they gain from all their efforts are to worship. وبضاعة الأولياء, and it's like the treasure of the friends of Allah. وطريق الأتقياء, and it's the way of the people of piety. وقسمة الأعزاء, and it's the portion rendered to the people like, people who are strong, who are really using good strength. This will be what they gain. ومقصد ذو الهمة, and this is the objective of people who have like really strong aspirations. والشعر الكرام وحرفة الرجال والنساء واختيار أولي الأبصار وهي سبيل السعادة ومنها الجنة. So basically he begins, I'm going to stop here because I want to stop on time. But basically he starts to talk about the fruit of devotion. When you think of worship, what's the first thing that comes to mind? And sometimes we're going to do discussions too tonight, which I hope someone's okay. There were police all over the subway, so I hope everything's all right. When you think of worship, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Is it salah? Remembrance, yeah. Obedience, submission, acknowledgement. What does that mean? What do you mean by acknowledgement?
Yes. Interesting. I guess it's more of, especially when you said knowledge aspect of it.
Yeah, I think that's a fly that was on Mike Pence's head, man. Seriously, man. What the heck? This fly's like straight gangster.
It's like, just stating, I guess declaring what you think.
Okay, let me make sure here. About on this side, if our sisters want to hear from you, you think of worship.
What's the first thing that comes to mind?
Submission, yeah.
That's excellent. Yes. Obedience, obeying. Excellent, excellent. Being conscious, kind of like remembrance, what was said over here, yeah, being in it, being aware. That's excellent. Yes, yes, brother.
I was gonna add on to what you said about acknowledgement. I like remembering Allah in general is and acknowledging His presence in various situations does play an important role in worship because we often tend to forget Allah in certain situations where we do certain things without thinking twice or thinking about the consequences. But having the tawakkul in Allah and having the thought that there can be consequences against my actions is a part of worship.
Yes.
There are answers on
Some answers on the screen.
Taya said worship anything that is pleasing to Allah or done for Allah, and Shirley said prayer.
Nice, nice. Yes. Trust, yeah, very important. Worship what I don't trust. That's why it's called Iman. We're going to talk about on Thursdays. The word Iman is from a word we used to trust. It's very important. In the back, yes, sir.
Connection.
Connection, yeah. Feeling a connection. You just doing a fly. So I thought you put your hand up, man.
Oh, yeah, no, just kind of going on
Sure.
What you said as well, kind of acknowledgement in the sense that, especially with bad things happen, it can be difficult to go into detail a lot.
Right,
So,
right,
so,
right.
rather
Very
than,
practical.
I guess lying to yourself and say, I'm glad that you went through it, just acknowledge it.
Yeah, sometimes, you got to be your own first personal trainer. Let's just stop for a second and go like 30,000 feet above his text. What do you think he's doing right now? Why is he suddenly telling you like, man, this is worship, this, worship is awesome, worship, this. He's trying to get you into a position where you're like, man, worship's important. And then he's going to say, but here are the things that are going to stop it. So you kind of want to follow, he's a Neoplatonic, he's largely influenced by Aristotle, as this age of scholars were. Imam Khazadi was deeply involved in like creating kind of like a independent kind of Muslim logic, which is very important, mantiq. But what he's doing is he's writing, he's just saying like, I'm going to mention all these reasons why worship's important. And he doesn't define it on purpose to create dissidence in the reader that's like, well, what is worship? Right? Because you saying so amazing, it's like if someone's like, man, this halal spot is this. They don't tell you where it is. I mean, where is it? Oh, okay. But don't take this road. Don't take that road. Don't take this train. Don't do this way. This is how you're going to get there. It's kind of what he's doing right now. So what he's doing is what scholars would talk about. He's what's called ard al-fada'il, presenting the virtues, trying to motivate somebody, trying to be like that personal trainer. So as we stop, what he's going to do next is then say, well, since it has all these virtues, and since it has, all these great things, we're just going to read this last part. He says, very beautifully, إِذَا تَأَمَّلْنَا وَإِذَا نَظَرْنَا فِيهَا وَتَأَمَّلْنَا طَرِيقَهَا مِنْ مَبَادِئِهَا إِلَى مَقَاصِدِهَا. He said, if we stop and think about what worship is, what he just said about worship is like, it's the key to Jannah, it's the fruit of your life. It's what, really people want to gain through life if they're Muslim. It says, if we think about it in that regards, and we spend some time addressing it, then we're going to realize that from its beginning to its objectives, فَإِذَا هِيَ طَرِيقٌ وَعْرٌ, is hard. And I like that about it. It's a hard way. How many of us are here? How many people out there? All those people are doing crazy stuff in Washington Square Park. I'm actually meeting a friend that's hilarious. He came from Pakistan. I told him to meet me in Washington Square Park. I wonder what he's thinking right now. He just got here, man. I told him I'll meet you in Washington Square Park. He's like, okay, we're buddies from college. Actually from India, sorry, India, not Pakistan. But I'm just gonna let him sit out there for a while. Does he text me?
He's gonna be traumatized. It's all good though. Hey, he's from Mumbai. He knows what's up. So he says, فَإِذَا هِيَ طَرِيقٌ وَعْرٌ. If we think about it, it's hard. وَسَبِيلٌ صَعْبٌ. And its way is difficult. كَثِيرَةُ الْعَقَبَاتِ. It has a lot of obstacles. شَدِيدَةُ الْمُشَقَّاتِ. And its hardships can be great. بَعِيدَةُ الْمُسَافَاتِ. And it's like a long path, man.
It's one of the things I see sometimes. People want things quick. But religion is a process, not an event. It's very important we say that. If people are like, oh, I'm going to go to this conference. I'm going to change my life. No, you're not. You may change a little, and you may be lucky. Maybe God will bless you, but that won't be fair to the people around you. Also, if you suddenly just come back and change everything, it's kind of irresponsible. So we want to also, as we go through this class, begin to locate religion as a process. Process have up and downs. There's failure, there's success. It's not linear. You ever feel like, man, I wish I could be, I wish I could be like how I used to be. My imam's like so strong. But you're who you are now. Like this is where Allah wants you. Imam Ibn al-Ta'ala says, يَسْتَخْتِمُكَ بِدُونِ انْتِقَامٍ. Like Allah will use you without bringing you from one place to another. What I used to be, what I am. Alhamdulillah. I am what I am. Let me work on it. And he says, as we finish, Azimatul Afat. It has incredible, it can be wrought with incredible shortcomings and mistakes on our part. Kathiratul Awaiqi wal Mawani'i. And there's a lot of obstacles and things that are going to prohibit you from getting there. A lot. حقيقة مهالك ومقاطعي. So like in this, a lot of people have been destroyed on this path. It's not easy. So what he's doing here, right? After talking about the virtues of knowledge, worship, and then talking about the perils, the difficulties of it all. Now you can see where he's going to say, but out of all this, there's 7 things you got to focus on. So kind of building up to this idea of the purpose of his book. And we'll continue talking about that next week. And I hope to have the translation on the board, so you're not just listening to me. Are there any questions or thoughts? Anything I can do better? Is there anything I can do to improve this? That's my question. That's my question. I have a question. Thanks. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, we do. So somehow we'll get that syllabus to people. If you want to email me, you can email me, or is there somewhere they can email that we can send them the syllabus?
Yeah, if you sign up, then we can send you the link for this.
So we'll send you. I put it both the free one, which is sort of interesting translation. I don't know what the guy was doing when translating. He was having a lot of fun. And then he may have been in the park. And here's another translation. I haven't bought it. It's on Amazon. And also we plan to do discussion groups at times, like through each of his topics, so that we can add scenarios that are like now. He's going to present scenarios that were like his time. We don't live in, Naysapur in the 6th century. We sort of do, like in New York City, but it's a different time. But it allows us to think critically then also, and to test in many ways his ideas. Are they still accessible? Yes, but are they still applicable? If so, what needs to be kind of tinkered with? Any other questions, thoughts, comments? Yes, sir.
We have a recording of the previous book we went through.
I think this one is up. This one is on my YouTube page.
Yeah,
It's on the ICNY
The
too.
other one, the deliverance from the sky.
It wasn't recorded. I think because it was like on Zoom.
Do you have any plan of doing it in the future?
I think we'll do it again. Yeah, I believe that this book and Deliverance from Error should be taught to like seniors and colleges, seniors in high school and college. Because both of them, like in Deliverance of Error, Imam Khazadi, he says, like, I grew up around Christians and Jews. I started to wonder, like, why are they Christians and Jews? Like, why am I Muslim? Like, it's a very honest text. Right? He goes through kind of the questions that we all ask sometimes. But he's like, man, I got these questions and I'm Imam Khazali, you know what I mean? Like, I got to answer the question. So, like, I like his vulnerability, if you will. His honesty is appreciated, mashallah. Alrighty, so next week we'll start at 6:30, inshallah. My apologies. I came from DC, went home, and came right back, and then the train, something happened. So may Allah protect everybody, inshallah. Barakallahu feekum. Nice to see everybody. Assalamu alaikum.